Dropbox. And we'll allow for public comment now, but maybe you want to reserve those comments till after you hear the presentation. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment now? Yes, sir.
Hello, Michael Schroeder, South Annville Township, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Lebanon County branch of the NAACP. First, I want to express our extreme disappointment in the vote a couple months ago to get rid of the drop box. It seems to us that it feeds into the big lie of a stolen election, that it undermines public confidence in Lebanon County elections. It seems also that it throws Sean Drasher and his team under the bus, and it seems a solution in search of a problem. So what we've asked is for a full-throated endorsement of the integrity of Lebanon County elections by the Lebanon County Commissioners and in Sean Drasher and his team, that you have full faith and confidence that they can run an election fairly, and that you have full faith in the integrity of Lebanon County elections. Regarding the satellite office, it seems to us, I know you're going to be a presentation on it, it seems to be an acceptable alternative if it is set up for the amount of time that the drop box was there. Because, as you know, we no longer have election day. We have an election period. So we would further encourage the commissioners to change the language on the website, on the ballots, and everywhere else to get rid of the words election day, replace them with in-person voting day, and instead have election period, because people vote over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. Thank you.
Anyone? Yes, ma'am?
Yep.
Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Whitestrom. I'm the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. It's good to see some of you again. We were here a couple weeks ago. We are part of a powerful, nationwide, nonpartisan organization. We have a national office in Washington, D.C. We've got 50 state leagues, and we've got hundreds of leagues across the country. The League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, I have to look at my own stats, has 30 leagues and nearly 10,000 supporters statewide. So I am here speaking on behalf of our statewide organization and our members and supporters across the state, but also the dozens of members and supporters we have here in Lebanon County. It is imperative that we have accessible and reliable voting options for all citizens. Our message is clear. Lebanon County must adopt and implement an alternative to the ballot drop box removed on February 15th. The county must ensure accessibility through expanded hours and consideration for those with disabilities ahead of the April 23rd primary. Expanded hours should include weekends, particularly during the 2 weekends preceding the election, to accommodate voters with traditional work schedules who have a hard time making it to the polls, and ensure equitable access to the voting process. Failure to implement an alternative, and I agree this is an acceptable alternative, assuming these features, or to reinstate the drop box will result in undue hardship for Lebanon County voters. Without accessible options, individuals may face wait times of up to 45 minutes, disproportionately affecting those with disabilities, demanding work commitments. Our poll workers, who often can't vote in person on election day because they are supporting the election process in other polling places, or those seeking to submit their ballots in the days leading up to the election. We also know that the arrival of mail ballots to voters will be delayed due to petition challenges, and these voters need a reliable and accessible way of returning their ballots. I would like to applaud Commissioner Kuhn, who on February 15th publicly stated that the proposed alternative is superior to the drop box, which underscores the need for action. I am here to hold Commissioner Kuhn to his word and to urge all 3 commissioners to take action. Approve an alternative plan so voters have a reliable and accessible option to make their voices heard. It's time to prioritize voter accessibility and expand opportunities for citizens to fulfill their civic duty. Let's ensure every voice is heard by providing a reliable and accessible drop-off site for mail-in or absentee ballots. Democracy thrives when every citizen can participate fully in the democratic process. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Kadina Kenner. I'm the founding CEO of the New Pennsylvania Project, a voting rights organization statewide. We operate in Lebanon County and all throughout the capital region as well. As a voting rights organization, we have registered more than 35,000 Pennsylvanians to cast ballots here in the Commonwealth, and we'll register another 60,000 this year. Many of those here in the capital region in Lebanon County. I'm here today to kind of center us and an anniversary today, being March 7th, the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. And knowing that so many have fought and died for the right to vote and access to the ballot, today being one of those days, John Lewis crossed the bridge and almost lost his life in order for folks to be able to have access to the ballot and cast votes. And we believe as an organization that everyone who is a citizen should have access to the ballot. And that includes those with disabilities who will be disenfranchised potentially by not having more access to drop boxes. We know in the previous elections, drop box use has gone up, and it is beloved by those who use it, particularly amongst those who are working 2 and 3 shift jobs and don't have access to get to the polls on a Tuesday in November or to the polls on April 23rd. So we ask that you really consider expanding access to the ballot so that all can be part of this democracy, take action in this democracy, and feel as though their voices are heard. We don't make it very easy for Pennsylvanians to vote. There's other states that do a much better job, and I think that we can come into the future here as the Commonwealth and here in the County of Lebanon as well, and provide better access to the ballot. And so I just remind us all that on this day, not that long ago, many have fought and died for this right, and as an organization that centers communities of color, immigrant communities, and the youth 30 and under, we really ask that you consider expanding access to the ballot. We need more, less barriers, more access. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm probably going to repeat what some other people have said. To begin with, I want to thank the commissioners for seriously looking at an alternative to the drop box. If you do go ahead and pass that expanded version, I would be very happy if you do that. But I also want to say it was probably not necessary. Excuse me, go ahead. I think you've all said that our elections here are safe and secure. They were safe and secure when the drop box was there. They'll be safe and secure if you pass this new proposal. What bothered me most about this whole incident was, again, that somehow implying that the drop box could lead to fraud was kind of hearkening back to the big lie that the 2020 election was rigged and that Trump actually won. And, numerous lawsuits, investigations, panels, and everything have shown that that is not true. And I think you all know that that is not true. But implying that this is somehow could be fraud is just wrong. And I would want to ask, maybe you could get Sean to stand up at some point, or somebody from voter registration, to explain all the steps that are taken to make sure our elections are fair and secure. Nobody's going to be able to go and put 15 ballots into the drop box and have them counted as individual votes. There are many, many steps to ensure that things are fair. And so I would really like the commissioners to stand up, tell all the residents of Lebanon County that our elections are fair and secure, and they always have been. Thanks, that's it.
I just wanted to, Pat Steele, South Londonderry Township, Lebanon County. I just wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Schroeder and Monica, what's been said. It's just, at the last meeting, we talked about a public statement, the commissioners making a public statement that our elections are fair and safe and secure. I haven't seen that yet, and I think that's really important because my main disappointment in this whole thing, I'm a retired special ed teacher, so the accessibility component, thumbs up, that's good, that's really good, but my concern too has been the underlying message that somehow our election process is not safe and secure. I would like to see a public statement go out saying that I just feel very strongly it's your job to be promoting the safe and secure voting process that we have. So I'd like to see a public statement. I'd like to hear a response to that. Yes, we're going to do that, or if you're going to say no. But that's all. Thank you.
William Doherty, South Danville Township. I don't believe the previous two speakers announced their names. and if they're Lebanon County residents or not. But
Monica
I don't think it's
Feldman, South
necessary
Londonderry
to,
Township.
excuse me.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Excuse
give my
me?
name, sorry.
All right, well, you're supposed to do that when you start. I don't believe that it's necessary for the commissioners to say if the elections are free and fair. I'll cite a recent Heartland Institute Rasmussen report survey just completed in February 2024. And two of the findings are that 17% of the mail-in voters admitted to voting in a state that they were no longer a permanent resident. Another finding is that 21% of mail-in voters admitted they filled out a ballot for another person or family member. So there are many that if you look for them or you read, that you will find there are issues with the mail-in ballots. So I would just say that we should move on to the what Sean is going to present.
Could I just add my name?
I drop the channel, make sure everybody gets a chance.
All right.
You want to state your name for the record? You want, is that what you want to do?
Yes. My name is Monica von Dobenek. I live in South Londonderry Township.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make a comment now? Sir?
Hi, my name is Kevin Miller, Anvil Township. I'd like to open on behalf of Teresa Wickard from South Lebanon, who's unable to attend today. Teresa, and I have the documentation here, copies for the commissioners if they'd like it. Teresa recently had to move her mother to Stone Ridge in Myerstown. And as part of that, she wanted to make sure that her mother's voter registration was properly updated. So she filled out the necessary paperwork with her mother, had her mother sign it, brought it up here to the voter office. And at that time, one of the ladies, and I want to avoid a lot of names here if I could, but one of the ladies in the office told her that the address on the change of address form was incorrect. That lady in the office whited out the signed paper and corrected the address, which I have a bit of an issue with. She then changed the address. That address happens to be a private residence that's a neighboring property to Stone Ridge. It is not part of Stone Ridge. When we realized what was going on, she was able to reach out to someone that had a copy of the voter rolls, and we found that there were 10 people that were listed at that address that were primarily Stone Ridge residents that had apartment numbers, which were their room numbers. She went back and forth in order to get this fixed, and about 2 weeks ago, I went and looked. I had gotten a recent copy of the voter rolls. We went and looked, and now there's nobody at that private residence. The two people who lived at that residence have now been updated in the voter rolls and are now showing as residents of Stone Ridge. So they won't even get their information. So when we talk about the election office, you know, we want to have this, you know, the commissioners speak up in favor of the election office and saying how things are right. I'm not saying this is intentional, but I'm saying that things happen. And, you know, even these people make a mistake, and now we want to assume that everybody else going to the drop box is going to be making that. So if the commissioners would like information, I have copies of several documents showing those people being at the wrong address, not at the address from a year ago when it was only the two people and whatnot. But as for myself, I would just like to point out, we keep hearing about, when I was here a month ago, people kept talking about how we need to make this easy. And I said, this is not about being easy. There's no requirement for the state to make anything easy for you. Our First Amendment, or not the First Amendment, I'm sorry, in the Pennsylvania Constitution, Article 1 is our Bill of Rights. Section 5 says elections shall be free and equal. And it goes on to say no power, civil or military, shall at any time infringe or prevent the free exercise of the right of suffrage. And I do want to say that I support that. Nobody should be kept from voting. But likewise, this is not about making things easy. That being said, I went and took the time to look at all 60 precincts, the number of registered Republicans, the number of registered Democrats, the total registrations, knowing that there are independents in the middle, the travel time and the travel distance. And I find it interesting that where the drop box is being placed, The Democrat-leaning precincts, with the exception of one, Mount Gretna, is within a 2-mile radius. Approximately 60% of Democrats live within a 5-mile radius of the proposed location, but only about 40% of Republicans. So if we're talking about making things easy, and we want to make that our benchmark, we need to look at the people that have travel distances of up to 14 miles and 25 minutes, according to Google Maps, in order to reach this drop box. Now,
There should be men.
well,
Excuse me, order.
that's, but I'm just saying.
It's more ballot.
Excuse me, this is not a debate here. He has the floor now, so please, everybody else, listen.
But if we're going to make it equal, somebody needs to determine what is easy and what is equal. I would also remind people that drop boxes do not appear anywhere in any of the legal code and are not a requirement or even a suggestion of the state. Well, there is no law against it, I will admit, but we're not required to actually do that. When I was here a month ago, I was talking to someone after the meeting, and they said about how one of their big issues was that people, need access to that because of their work schedules and whatnot. And they said to me, well, the Dropbox is actually open till 8 o'clock the night of elections, and they could come drop their ballot. And initially I didn't think about it, but after they walked away, I thought, well, if they're saying that they can drop their ballot up to 8 o'clock, most people have to travel farther to get to the drop box than to their own poll. So why not just go to the poll and vote? If that's your main issue, that the drop box is more convenient for most people, on election day, your voting poll, it certainly has to be a more convenient location than a drop box. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Dennis Foltz. I'm a resident of Heidelberg Township, and I've been active in local politics for the last number of years, doing door-to-door canvassing of the registered voters in my precincts. And I get to have face-to-face conversations with the actual voters that are our constituents. And I became a candidate for committee on the ballot this year. So I put myself in a position of being in direct communication with a multitude of voters in our precinct. And the overwhelming concerns that they have is responsible government and election integrity. Those two things float to the top. And so responsible government constitutes reasonable budgets and fiscal responsibility. They all believe you're doing a fairly good job at that. The thing they abhor there is wasteful spending. So having said that, I was told that all these new situations are going to require a lot of investment and possibly tax increases. So I would say the overwhelming majority of the people in my voting district would be opposed to that on the money issue alone. The next thing is election integrity. People get their ballots allegedly by mail. They come to them through the U.S. mail. And they feel safe and secure getting their ballot mailed to them in their own mailbox or their own whatever. But apparently it's not appropriate to put a stamp on it and mail it back. If they trusted the post office to get it there, why not trust it to get it back? And you can do that any hour of the day or night by simply throwing it in a local mailbox as close as you can walk to, or you put it in your own mailbox. So getting the ballots back is simple and easy, really easy. Just put it in the mailbox. Okay? I think it's laudable that these major high horsepower organizations have a few dozen local supporters. I think that's great that they can find a few dozen local people so they could come in here and present their speeches. But I'm talking about a resident living in the precinct, talking face to face with the majority of the electorate, and bringing you their truthful opinions, and I'm presenting that to you because you need to hear what your constituents are wanting and feeling. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners Phillips, Kuhn, and Litz, and fellow Lebanon Countyans and other supporters.
Would you introduce yourself?
My name is Duncan McLean, and I live in South Lebanon Township. So I'm a fellow citizen like you. I just met Dennis. We're already good friends here. I do volunteer for several of the civic groups that are represented here, but I'm speaking today only on my own behalf. In my public comments on February 15th, I asked you to disclose any evidence of fraud in Lebanon County, and you did cite anecdotally only a few persons who had reported delivering ballots for their family members. At that time, we also agreed that that was only a minor technical peccadillo, easily remedied by appointing a delegate, such as what I did for my own wife, who has a mobility problem. We're getting some more information, and I certainly urge the gentleman to submit your data or your observations or your documentation to the commission and to Director Drasher, and I assume that that needs to be investigated. Was that, you know, a malicious act, or was that just an error, or somebody's confused? On February 15th, we also talked about how residents of long-term care facilities are especially vulnerable because they can't advocate for themselves, and we had a nice conversation about how to address that. I would urge folks to understand that there's two different issues here, or at least several different issues here. One is what might be called ballot stuffing. Another would be called ballot harvesting, such as from long-term care facilities. And the third issue would be the drop box itself. I don't think those should be necessarily conflated. On February 15th, I asked you to provide a full-throated affirmation of the integrity of our election system. And I also asked you to thank the many volunteers and staff who run our elections so well, and you did so. I didn't see a proclamation, but you did make a public statement, I believe, each of you. However, it would be appropriate to do so again today to simply confirm that. So I'm here today because on February 15th, you then promised to give us a ballot delivery option that is at least as good, and ideally, to quote you, better than the current drop box. And in this important presidential election year, I want to follow through to encourage you to fulfill that promise for a drive-up ballot drop box. I think I'd like to just respond to a couple of the issues raised by my fellow Lebanon Countyans. And I don't want to get into a tug of war here, but just simply to clarify a couple of things. I would invite Rasmussen to do a survey of Lebanon County, and what I'm getting at is that it's one thing nationally and, you know, other jurisdictions, Montgomery County or California or this or that, what's going on there. I believe we're in Lebanon, and Lebanon is a different thing. That's what you're responsible for, and Director Drasher is responsible for. So data, you know, from other places is interesting, but that shouldn't necessarily be determinative. I was very interested in the calculation of the location of the various registered voters to the drop box, and I'm thinking, just off the top of my head, that if there are plenty of registered, say, Republicans, say, in North Lebanon, A solution would be to actually add a drop box closer to them so that they have equal, to use that term, access to the ballot. To also answer the question about, what's the big deal on election day? Well, there are some workers who work multiple shifts, and do you want to really disenfranchise them? So that's, I think, part of the rationale of having an election season as opposed to just an election day. And of course, the drop box or multiple drop boxes would accommodate that. Lastly, relating to the United States Postal Service, I have had the experience of mailing a check to one of my creditors, and it took a month for that check to get there, and they almost sent me to collections. So when it comes to my vote, I want to make sure that it gets to where it needs to go, and I trust the Postal Service with just about everything, but not this one, especially when the clock is ticking and there's time frames, and if it arrives 1 minute past the thing, my vote doesn't count. So here are some other ideas to consider, and I'll try to be brief here. If you do have the proposed drop-off location, can the staff at that drop-off remind voters to sign and date the outer envelope and inquire if the voter remembered to use the secrecy envelope properly? Además, pueden contratar con asistentes bilingües para ayudar a votantes hispanos. What I just said was, can you hire bilingual staff in the election office to help Hispanic voters? Can you give us expanded hours, say evenings or weekends, for the benefit of the hardworking citizens who can't wait in lines during weekday shifts? Can you publicize through newspapers, your website, social media, all the new options that we're talking about? I want to make one more point here. Last time, one of you claimed that your job is not to make voting easy. That's true. For serious citizens like us here, voting never will be easy. But with all due respect, let's be clear, in our democracy, elected commissioners work for us. We don't work for you. We get to tell you what your job is, and we here today, or many of us, are telling you that we want casting ballots to be convenient, or at least not inconvenient. And we're telling you, with Lincoln, that your job is to preserve our government of the people, by the people, for the people, and like Lincoln, really mean it when it comes to elections and casting our ballots. So thank you for inviting us here today. We are eager to look at your proposal for a new and improved ballot drop-off option. Thank you.
At this time, if not, we'll entertain Mr. Drasher, move on to the agenda and maybe go through your items. And what I'd like to suggest, again, is that we allow another time after he makes his presentation, but I can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Maybe Sean, what you should do is go through the entire list, because the last item, the update that we had been talking about, could cause some delays that are beyond our control and every county's control right now. Some statewide issues. So anyway, let's give Sean the floor, make his full presentation, and if you don't mind, then Commissioner, we'll come back to the first item to consider action and any additional comment.
To start with the ballot itself? Yeah. Okay. So jumping right into the actual paper ballot that is being prepared right now, Lebanon County was ahead of schedule. We have it in the final form that we can possibly have it at this point. But at the state level, there are three court cases filed, one still outstanding in the U.S. Senate. So even though we are ready to go, we cannot mail or approve the ballot until the state the courts resolve those cases. So there is one more case filed yet for Friday, and we have already been notified through channels that we are expecting an appeal with the Supreme Court, pushing, on one of those cases, pushing back ballot approval weeks. So we are going to be done now with LNA testing and ready to mail out ballots starting in a few days.
Excuse me, LNA?
Logic and accuracy testing of our machines and ballots. We were going to be wrapping that up this afternoon on our schedule, on the county schedule, but we have not even been able to start that because of the outstanding court cases. That means that ballots will not be mailed out for any state, any county in the state until the very end of this month. That puts us way behind schedule, but there's absolutely nothing we can do. Everything is locked and loaded. We're all in the same boat. That Supreme Court case is killing us. So, that said, the whole state is in the same boat. We just received warning again from the Department of State warning us that while it will be very tempting to move forward because we're ready, that please do not do so because we have a legal obligation to have a fair and accurate ballot, not just a timely ballot. So with that being said, we've rescheduled logic and accuracy testing for a full week from Monday. I can't remember what that date is, a week from Monday. And that'll take a week, and then ballots will go out after that. So we are pushed way back, folks, I'm sorry. We don't want to hear that, but it is what it is. So I do not have the ballot to hand you today, but I could give you a digital copy if you wanted to look over. You'll have plenty of time. You'll have plenty of time to review it.
We wanted to announce that today so the public is aware. It's beyond our control, and we're going to do the best we absolutely can, but, you know, again, we can't move it out forward till it's, you know, we have those final decisions made, so.
Yeah. So if you're in the public and you're waiting for your ballot, please do not melt our phones down. We cannot, we cannot help it. We are like you on standby. We are expecting by Monday to hear the fate of the third case, but again, then there will be an appeal filed after that, so we don't know when that will happen. All right, so that's the big news. We otherwise would be ready to roll, and I'll send you digital copies of the ballot here probably by the end of the day tomorrow, because then we probably will have a pretty good idea of who's been removed, just not if one of them will end up back on. All right, any questions about the ballot? Okay. So general status update. Speaking of nursing homes, Doc, we had the opportunity to visit Celebration Villa a couple weeks ago, and we did. Gave a presentation there to some residents and to the social director. Talked about some of our concerns, explained what they had to do using an affidavit if they wanted someone else to carry their ballots for them. Explained that there was their right and their right alone to be filling out their own ballot. No one else can be doing it for them remotely, things like that. It was a very pleasant and easy visit. I'm hoping moving forward that all of them will be that easy. They're a great group of people over there. As of today, we are at 6,200 mail-ins that are processed. We expect a lot more yet. So we are ahead of where we've been the last bunch of elections at this point in the election cycle. But we're still not huge numbers relative to some other counties, but 6,200 is where we are this morning. We are all caught up in the backlog from when my entire office was out with RSV for a few days. That wrecked us. But we are caught up as of today. Yesterday, completely different topic, the e-poll books were all delivered to the county. They're all down the hall here, locked up and ready to go. We'll be logic and accuracy testing those as well, but we're going to wait for a few weeks to do that until we have some data we can put in to test with. So that's an exciting development for us. And right around the time the logic and accuracy testing is going on, our training kicks off for the poll workers. So the March 25th and 26th, we'll be holding training classes for the poll workers, and then April 1st and 2nd, we'll be holding 2 more training classes. In this training, is pretty repetitive. This will be the first really different training session that we hold for poll workers, because we'll be covering all the e-poll book material. So we hope everyone comes. Sometimes people think they can get away with not showing up, but we warned them they have to be there this time. That's our status. Accepting applications for a receptionist. Send them our way. Okay, so the drop-off proposal. Good news. It's not a whole lot different than what was presented here before. This basic framework, as is behind Matt there, is still what we are proposing. I have been offered a lot of fantastic ideas from the community and from the building here. And some of the ideas are really great, but there comes a point where we have to have a plan to move forward now. We are running out of time. This thing with the court cases has bought us a couple of weeks, unfortunately, to get this in place. But we do have to just have a plan to get things rolling now. So I've left you a quick write-up here at your seats of what that plan is. There is no new news here. The structure, both Jamie and I discussed, and Steve, maintenance, discussed multiple ways to approach the structure. Jamie had a fantastic idea of using a bus stop type structure because it's clear. Lexan, I like the idea of a shed because then I can shut it at night if we just want to leave a folding chair or something out there. Just little things for convenience. They are similar, well, the shed's a little bit more expensive. For a custom-built, fully custom-built shed delivered on site, it's going to be $2,725. There is a very rudimentary plan on the back.
$2,700?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
spell that out.
$2,725. The shed, in keeping with the idea of having it very visible, is completely flanked on all sides by windows all the way around. It does have a 3-foot door on the front, and it has an awning that, it's not an A-frame, it's a lean-to type shed with an awning that extends out into the parking lot, so it should extend enough that as people are passing ballots, it will keep them out of the rain, which is a big concern of mine. We had that one problem where we had heavy rains a few elections ago, leading up to the election, and a lot of the mail-in ballots that came in were waterlogged. So I'm trying to head that off. So it's just an empty shed, nothing particularly fancy out there. Our maintenance department indicates that they could set up very quickly running electric power out to that shed if we would like that. Nothing fancy. But that way we could power a separate camera that would be put on the shed. So right now, the best camera view that in my opinion, is right behind Commissioner Litz there. We have 3 cameras off the building that all point at the area right where that shed is from slightly different angles. That's fine, but what we're talking about is we can run power out to the drop-off location, then we can put a camera up under the awning that would be able to look into the cars driving up, and then also capture the license plate as they drive away. Now, I am not proposing that we hire somebody to sit and monitor that camera at all times. It's just not practical, but it would at least be taped in the event that there would be a security problem of some sort, which I don't anticipate, but we would at least be able to go back to the tape and have an extra layer of security. Security, to that end, we have a panic button already set up and ready to go in the shed. It's the same one that we have access to in our offices. The sheriff department downstairs have already tested out, says it has the range, so we should be fine with that. So that's set up. Staffing, we would be staffing at 8 hours a day. It would be the same hours the drop box had formerly been used for, which was the hours of our office, 4:30 to 8:30, except on election day. Staffing, yeah?
No, I'm just looking at, maybe you're going where I was wondering, that we would be staffing till the end of the day.
Yes.
On election day, not till 4:30.
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be, and on election day, it would follow election day till 8 o'clock, just like the drop box. It'd be all the same rules.
My word verbiage was wrong.
For staffing, I've already approached, not all, but I've been able to talk to a handful of other directors in the building to see if there'd be interest in sharing some of their staff to help us with the costs there. There has been some interest, people who either want to get a little break in the spring sunshine, or just, probably, that's pretty much it. And hopefully they could take their work with them outside so we could double up and make the most out of the time. I don't anticipate that would cover most of the shifts, but it would at least make a dent into it. And then the remaining shifts, we would treat like poll workers. We would bring in any members of the community. I would reaching out to poll workers to begin with. They would be paid for their time, and we'd have to work out a schedule with the lunches. But that's not in the proposal today. We can work that out. I'm not too worried about that. Inside the shed, we'd use a hard-sided receptacle bolted to the floor. So for safety, that would be where we'd store the ballots throughout the day. Just like the drop box used to be, we could do multiple pickups throughout the day, probably in the mid-morning and then that evening before we go. And that's probably all we're going to need. As long as we keep up with it, it's not too bad. And we would then bring them in just like we do now, or did now, up into the office and put them in the vault from there. Scheduling. The one question I've had a lot of feedback over and a wide breadth of what the opinions are is when we have this actually set up. I propose for April 1st. That's a nice round number. It's a Monday morning, and that hits the 3-week period prior to the election where we have our bulk of ballots coming back. That does, the downside of that is then ending up covering the ballot box with staff for 3 weeks. That's not, I'm not too terribly worried about that, but that would be the one downside I saw. That would give us full coverage, especially this election cycle where the ballot mailing has been pushed back. That would give us full coverage of when the box would have been out.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You mentioned the cost of the shed, but in my notes, there was also a cost for per day staffing,
Yes, yes.
per day per person.
Yeah, that'd be $120 a day.
$120.
And that we could set it to anything you want. That is what we pay our judge of elections and temporary staff.
Did you at one point also indicate that funding for this might be available through?
Oh, yeah, I glossed right by that, I'm so sorry. So looking at our grant money, we could access the grant money from the EIGP grant to cover fully all of these costs. So it would be out of no taxpayer dollars from the county.
May I address that?
Mm-hmm.
That's well and good, but at the end of the day, it is still taxpayer money.
Mm-hmm.
And when that money or grant runs out or is not renewed, then it's back on the local taxpayer because the expectation is we're going to continue what we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just putting that out there as a realistic part of the picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we should spend some time talking about, propose this for final action. One of the key decisions is going to be the timing, when it's going to be available, and considering the information you just gave us about delay in scheduling, what would you propose would be the time frame that should be part of?
He said April
Yeah,
1st.
yeah. And I have a question leading up to it. Would you like to break this up into different, do you approve the shed? Do you
Do that.
or you want to do one vote? How would you?
I'd like to have a full
I think it's
picture of what we're doing before I vote.
Okay, well, okay. So then I propose to hit the full calendar of when the mail-in ballots will be out, and the bulk of ballots coming back the 3rd week prior to the election and the 2nd week prior to the election. That would lead us right to April 1st, Monday the 1st.
I don't understand that, I'm sorry. I want to be perfectly clear.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, the drop box was out basically the day after they were mailed, because some people get a one-day turnaround time, and the reality is most people, as soon as it comes, will sit down and vote their ballot. So if we're going to do the same level that was done for the drop box, we should also put our shed into operation the day after the mail-in ballots are mailed, no matter when they go out, because what you have is uncertainty with anything else. And that way, we get the maximum. I know these court cases are beyond our control, but if indeed they're settled Friday and the ballots go out, can we can't approve them till 2 weeks from now? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because that's our next meeting. Can we call a special meeting?
That's a fantastic question. Okay, there's a lot there I need to unpack,
Yeah, that's
but they're
okay.
all very good points. So, and I'm not being rude, I need my calendar in front of me here, so right now, we would have been doing logic and accuracy testing now. This meeting, we would have been asking you to vote for the ballot. Instead, even if they have the court case decided tomorrow, well, it will be, we might not get the decision tomorrow. Today's the 8th, that would be the earliest we'd get that decision is the 11th, and we've been warned that then a Supreme Court appeal will be filed. We don't have a date on that, but the general consensus is that the court has a interest in having it done by the end of next week, the 15th. or so. That would have our logic and accuracy testing starting on the 18th. Could we use a vendor? So I can't get them in on the weekend, unfortunately. So that would be, the 18th would be logic and accuracy. That takes minimum 4 days. That's the 21st, minimum. It often runs into Friday. I think we'll be done by the 21st, though, where I'm pushing them. Then we could drop, if everything goes perfectly, we could conceivably drop mail the 22nd, but let's not say perfect. Let's give me at least a day or so to make sure things come in, a business day, so the 25th. So if we start that mail processing, at that point, we could have a special meeting or something, but that would be on the 21st. We're already scheduled for a meeting. So that would time in right when logic and accuracy testing is wrapping up. At that point, I'll know what's going on. I'll know what's fine or not. We'll
So
just be,
our next meeting is the 21st. It's already been
Yeah.
advertised.
yep, already advertised.
We're all set to go.
Yes.
Perfect.
So it just happens to work out that way for us.
So if they're dropped the 22nd, I would like to see the shed opened on the 23rd, if that's not a weekend.
So the 22nd would be that would be hitting Postal Hub. There'd be no way for them to even be physically delivered before the 25th. Like there'd be no way for someone to get it if we drop on the 22nd. So the 25th would be the earliest postal delivery.
And what is the day of the week, the 25th?
Monday the 25th.
Okay.
And that's why there's a few days there.
If
It's
that
just
is the
way you can do it.
minimum, then I would like to see it open on the 25th.
It's the 25th.
What?
So the 25th, you got it.
Yes. That way it would be equal to what the Dropbox was, and that was the whole premise of making the drive-through equal to or better than what the Dropbox was. And so that is why I'm requesting that.
Well, I would counter and appreciate that comment, but it was not to replicate everything associated with the Dropbox. Again, I'm listening to all these people in the room, and I've received at least 50, maybe closer to 100 different emails and comments on the streets. I'm trying to take all those in and trying to come up with a reasonable compromise. So there's a cost to doing this. As Mr.
There's a
Phillips
cost to not
just
doing
pointed-
it.
Exactly. There's a cost both ways. So what I'm trying to approach is a reasonable compromise, listening to all those voices, because there are voices that say you shouldn't even have a Dropbox. So I'm trying to come up with a reasonable compromise. So I see no sooner than April 1st is necessary to do that, possibly the 8th. So I'm not sure where you fall on that.
Well, I've not heard the calculation of either of those as far as $120 a day, but
2520 would be for 21 days for 3 weeks, $2,520. Now that's if they're all volunteer, I say volunteers, public versus election, our employees already. And I would also like to insert that we need to have equal representation at that acceptance point. We need at least one Republican and one Democrat, so there should be no less than 2 people manning it at one time.
May I interject a couple of things? If you're
Well,
Finish it,
I
yeah.
think that when you go to the polls, you have a minority and majority inspector, and this is essentially their poll to drop off their ballot. So you want at least one Republican and one Democrat, and that way they can see that the ballots are dropped into the locking area all at the same
but
time.
if they walk the 40, we've been told about a 45-minute wait if they go. They have no idea of the folks that are in the office that are taking the ballot, that whether they're Democrat or Republican.
We have a bipartisan team in the office.
Oh, I didn't know we hired that one.
I'm not allowed to ask. This is a
Yeah.
trap. This is an HR trap.
Can I?
Yeah,
No, it's not. May I make three comments? First, with regard to the date, there is lead time on the building. It's not built. So we're waiting for today in order to give a go-ahead on a building, number one. Number two, if and when you consider this, I believe one motion is preferable, just the proposal as presented, or with changes, you can adopt the proposal and move forward. Thirdly, I guess I was going to say similar to things to what Commissioner Phillips said, is that the office is staffed. I mean, I don't know who is registered how in the office of elections. So those same people are going to be in and out of manning the facility outside, and it wouldn't be any different. Again, Commissioner Kuhn, the last meeting, said this is an extension of the office. So being an extension of the office, these are either poll workers, county employees, whatever, and I don't believe, anyway, that partisan is part of it. It's just collecting the ballot, just as they would at the counter. So, I'm Jamie Waterman, by the way. I didn't introduce myself.
So, you asked me where and I just want to preface I have a date that I've held in my head that if I was going to support this, where that would be. And, but I just want to say, in response to some of the comments, that I have 3 issues that I'm trying to give weight to. And one is the security and the safety of the election. That is the number one thing in my mind, that if we have areas of weakness that we want to tighten up and it's legal to do so, I think that's an important thing for me to bring forward. The second is cost. If we're going to do something that's not required, that the taxpayers, whether they be here or at Harrisburg, using your income tax for supporting this, I think that that's a factor as well. And then the third is, on my mind, is convenience. I really, we have someone that notified us that today is the anniversary of someone who was almost killed defending, these kind of things for our country. We have had many people die and be injured fighting for our right to vote. And so convenience is my last part of this thing. I think if you've taken the option of a mail ballot, you took the option of a mail ballot, not a drop box ballot. And if you don't trust the federal or the post office, then don't use that. And certainly the best way, I've been told, if somebody's disabled, I'm suppressing their vote. This form, those folks have help if they're disabled. They have help in many walks of life, in terms of getting to the doctor and this is twice a year that you're asked to vote. This is a form that person that has a neighbor or a friend that helps them with those other things can be delegated to take that vote in legally. And it's not a picadillo for somebody, as I've heard that word expressed, for somebody breaking the law, bringing in their spouses or other people in their households into the drop box. That's a serious issue to me. There's a $2,500 fine per incident if someone would be caught doing that in the act of doing it and prosecuted by the DA's office. So those are the backgrounds of where I am in the balancing of all the issues. So where am I on the date? While I have some problems with the cost, if I look at that cost of the shed, I have to assume it's going to be good for 10 years. So it's not a $3,000 one time, it's going to be depreciated over 10 years. $300 a year, not terrible. But I still feel that with the grant money, as with all the grant money that we get here at the county, once it runs out, then we have to decide, are we going to use local tax money, or are we going to forego that, whatever expense it is? As for my date, I'm willing to, if I'm looking at this, at the best that I can, going as far as I can, I'm at the 15th of the month of April, giving 7 full days of people to drive up and hand off their ballot. So I'm giving, 7 days, whether that's acceptable to my colleagues or not. That's where I am, if I'm going to be supporting it.
I guess I would like to make a statement, if that's all right. Okay. First of all, I think we're all here for the same reason. And I've heard some additional terms today I want to acknowledge because they're very important. We want fair, safe, equal, and secure elections. That is our goal. I want to support that. So we get down to what is fair, safe, equal, and secure. And to the best of my knowledge, when people are hired in voter registration, there is some thought given to making sure there's at least a minority in there. And the people using the drop box are 2-to-1 Republican over Democrat. We don't want people feeling that it's not fair and safe and secure and equal. So by having one Republican and one Democrat manning that drive-through at all times, we can ensure that there is a full set of eyes watching and making it that way. I wanted it to start the day after they were mailed, but Sean has some rationale to start the 25th if that was my goal, because that's the earliest they could be delivered. I would yield to the 25th. And our election workers, I wanted to also mention that when they're working the polls or that drive-through, before they drop anything and take it fully, even if they have their fingers on it, they should be asking, did you remember to sign and date your outer envelope? No, do you have a pen? Here you go, sir, you know. And they make sure that's done before it's fully handed over to the person receiving, and then they drop it into whatever the lockbox is. So I think that's important, that we ask them one final time, did you remember to sign and date your outer envelope? I don't like seeing people go to the effort to vote and then it's not counted. That's not democracy. We got to make it right. We got to help make sure everybody gets it and gets their vote counted. And I want to say that everyone who helps with the elections, whether you're a voter, someone working the polls, our staff here throughout the county, thank you for a job well done. I have every confidence in all of the work and effort that you put in testing the machines, the LNA, logistic and accuracy testing. I have every faith in the vote count, and we do a little bit of an audit afterwards to make sure that those votes are counted by the machines accurately. We do so much, but it's all under the leadership of our voter registrar. So thank you all. You need to be able to depend on your staff and others who volunteer with the elections. It's a great partnership. How long has this county been voting? We're coming up on 250 years for the nation in just a few short years. So, I mean, I wasn't around 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but we've always taken pride. People fight for our country. They die for our country, for our right to vote. This is fundamentally a duty of county commissioners. I don't want to lose that. I want to keep the people's confidence and trust. So let's continue and make it as safe as we can and eliminate people challenging anything, because we have an equal representation accepting those ballots. And that is a prerequisite when you go to a poll, that we have minority and majority. Thank you.
I just want to clarify, do you get before you accept somebody as a volunteer, do you get their voter register, how they're registered to vote? Okay, I mean, I didn't think so. I didn't think there was, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I make a comment as well? Barbara Smith, proprietary. Sean and I have conversations now and then as department heads. One conversation that we had very recently was, we have open positions in our office. Our comment to each other was, do you even know their party affiliation when you hire?
No.
I don't,
No.
he doesn't. Out of my 18
It's so
employees,
inappropriate.
unless they specifically tell me what their party is, I don't know and I don't care. And Sean is the exact same way. So that comment about him hiring based on party, that is inaccurate, because I heard
And the
from Sean
volunteers
himself.
that are accepting ballots and
Absolutely.
counting ballots. I mean, that's the same.
We cannot have And we have 60 precincts. We cannot have one precinct unless we have minority inspectors, minority, we need a minority represented.
So, may I? I don't want to, I don't know when it's appropriate for me to jump in. I think you bring up an incredibly good point. Be very careful that, like, in my office, I will not check for hiring purposes. That's
Past
would be
election
inappropriate.
officials in your position have always made sure there was at least one minority.
Wow.
So at the polling place, we do a majority and minority inspector, and you're getting into the weeds there with some great election trivia. And the principle being that we should try to staff minority party not for the countywide, but for that precinct, with the minority party for that precinct. The check and balance of that system is elegant. It's beautifully designed. In real world practicality at the polling place, it's difficult to do. We elect people into those positions, and if someone's elected into a position that's of the other party, I can't stop it. That's what they're elected into. And the vast majority of those positions are filled by elected people. So when we do have someone that is appointed, we would like to say, is this for the minority or majority? Often it's just a clerk that then they get shuffled around and we lose control of that at the polling level. But the goal is always to try to have a Republican Democrat as clerks in those roles. Sometimes in all counties it's very difficult to actually staff for that.
But in your office.
But in my office.
And the volunteers that actually process the votes after they're cast, you do not screen them for?
No.
Okay.
And in fact, I'd say we take it one step further. If we hear partisan talk, we stamp it out right away, or
That's what I thought. I just
dismiss
thought I meant
people. As you may
businesses.
remember from a few elections ago, we had to let some people go. They couldn't draw the line. So.
Well, there was
Many people have made comments about just our even discussion about this whole thing is insinuating that there has been fraud. I think this suggestion that we have two people is also insinuating that there may have been, partisan activities going on, and I don't think that's the case. So
No, it's preventing that.
What we said last month, that Sean, his staff, the volunteers, the poll workers, we have great faith that they're doing a good job, and we have a lot of integrity. This whole thing was about taking a Dropbox that was out there, that can we make this better? And I think we have a proposal that is better from a security standpoint, but also convenience standpoint.
I'm treating, to use some language from the last meeting, I'm treating the staffing at this location as an extension of the office. So while in the polling locations, we do our best to try to balance party concerns between the two sides. In an extension of our office, I'm not asking. I don't want to know. I want to know I have somebody with some integrity who will show up on time.
May I ask a question to my colleagues? If indeed 2-to-1 Democrats were using the Dropbox or the drive-through over the Republicans, would you have the same opinion?
It's irrelevant to me.
Yeah, it never even entered my mind as an issue. So no, I don't want to create an issue out of
It's not
something.
about party, it's about security, and it's about convenience.
But it's also
And there's
their
a cost
polling
factor,
location.
I'm sorry, your hands are up, but this is not the time for public comment. We'll allow some later, but we're gonna finish this discussion and see if we have anybody that wants to make a specific motion.
Well, I'd
Because
make a
the thing in
motion.
question are cost and D.
I'd make a motion to purchase the local shed with glass all the way around and a locking door so we can store some basic forms and chairs, etc., not having to carry them in and out all day, if we're going to do this. As well as staffing, be 2 people from differing parties. It could be independent or anything like that, but at least 2 people at all times from different parties, and that it start on, based on Sean's calculation, the 25th of March. And that is my motion.
Well, I'll second the motion just for the sake of, I disagree with a couple of parts of it, but I'll second it for the sake of discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. So you have comment?
No, I guess I'm just perplexed as to that, having two people and having them identified as separate parties. I think if this thing does go through and it's back to the 25th, I don't see how you're going to be able to pull it off and comply with the motion. Not only do I think it's unnecessary, but I think it's not even logistically possible. You're going to have enough trouble finding people to man the hours that you're already calling for. So those are just a couple observations. And of course, my date is not that far back. It's seven voter days out from election day.
Commissioner Litz and Commissioner Phillips, you could both staff it together at the same time.
I would gladly
It's
volunteer.
a 6x8, there'd be lots of room there.
I will gladly volunteer.
I don't think that, that's the remedy.
So any other discussion on that? Entertain.
Just a point of clarification, so are the,
Please identify yourself.
Laura LeBeau, Seven Mountains Media, WLBR and Froggy Valley Radio. Are the workers, however many there will be, are they gonna be sitting in the shed, or I heard you say there's like an awning or something, are they sitting out to be seen?
They'll be in the shed just to be out of the elements. I frankly don't care if they set the chair up right outside the door or it's right inside.
And is there some sort of awning?
There is an awning, yes.
Okay, and is the shed gonna be a permanent structure, or after election, is it gonna be moved someplace for storage until the next?
Our maintenance department says that the design of the shed could be lifted by one of our tractors on forks and relocated if we wanted to reclaim those 2 or 3 parking spaces, because it's gonna cover about 2 parking spaces. When the cars are lined up to use it, it'll be a lot more, but the physical structure will be just like 1 1/3 or 1 1/2 of a parking space. So the plan right now is to move it somewhere else, when the election's over.
And finally, I know you said on election day, it would be open until 8.
Mm-hmm.
Would it open at 7 on election day, because that's when the polls open?
That would be what I would hope, but we could set it to be whatever you want. But yeah, I think that would be part of the plan, like to match whatever the polls are that day.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Call the question. Sorry, excuse me.
Excuse me, Jim Menson with Lead Town. Sean, you said EIP, is that?
EIGP.
Is that election integrity money?
Mm-hmm.
How much money does Lebanon County currently have in that fund?
About $450,000, approximately. At the start of the year, we are dipping into it with some of our investments right now. I don't have a number of the remainder off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Excuse me, we had a couple hands up, but public comment, these are the media, just to clarify why you're taking this.
Yeah, okay. So we'll allow.
No, I'm saying that we
Okay.
could,
All right.
I would
okay.
wait till.
Yeah, just
I think
so you know, the questions we always entertain from the media at this point. Matt, do you have something else?
Yeah, Matt Toth with Lebanon PA. You said that you're going to have the collection be physically in that shed, but have you worked out the logistics of when you're going to be collecting those ballots and the security about bringing them from those shed up to the election office here?
I don't overthink it. With the drop box, we collected twice a day. It would be me or maybe Amy that would walk down there and just collect the ballots. Everything's locked up. We'd unlock it, take out the ballots, put them in a tray or box, carry them up to our office and put them in the vault. So same thing we were always doing.
So,
Call for the question.
I'll call for the question, unless there are any other comments, questions from the board. Please, so the motion on the floor is to approve the purchase of this shed as proposed by Sean at the price of $2,725, and staff it with 2 people of different parties, and all the other details as situated, and a start date of March 25th. All those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye. So, we didn't get that one approved, but I'm hopeful. Mr. Phillips, you did say that you might.
Well, the only way that I would consider it is without the stipulation of having two parties represented at the car. And also that we would begin on March 15th, excuse me, April 15th, it's a Monday, and go to April 23rd and be open all the hours that the voting is open on election day.
What was that date?
Monday, April 15th. So it's 7 voting days ahead. So, and Sean, would you just give a moment on the tracking that's a lot, when people are putting mail back and forth, we rely on mail very, dominantly in our lives. But this is even a step beyond that, because you can track every piece of mail and know where it is at any given time. Is that correct?
Right. It's not as perfect as you might expect with tracking packages, unfortunately. To do so would be cost prohibitive. However, there is tracking. We are using postal tracking. So if you were to call me and say, where I asked for it 2 weeks ago, we first confirm that it went out from our office, and then I get into the postal system and I can see where it is. If it was up at Copper Hill Distribution Center, or if it's in Lebanon somewhere, and the tracking at that level for the USPS at that price point is not very precise, but it is something that we can do. It's comforting to know that I can log in for a voter and say, look, here's the exact day that it went out, here's the exact day it was at the distribution center, here's the exact day it hit the local postal service.
And they get an email once we get it in, is that correct, if it's a mail ballot, if we have their email address?
When we receive it back?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I want you to think about what you've just proposed. If they only open that drive-through, was it April 15th?
April 15th.
7 days, 7 voting days.
7 days.
7 voting days, yeah.
And Sean, how many mail-in ballots do we anticipate? 12,000?
Yeah, we're starting to trend down. We were expecting at least 12,000, but based on the trend that they're coming back at right now, we're maybe more like 10.
10,000, okay.
We'll see if things pick up.
Okay, that makes the math really easy with a round number.
Yeah.
But if you figure 7 days, 10,000 mail-in ballots, and people choose to use the drop box, do you realize that's over 1,000 a day?
That's assuming nobody uses the mail.
That's about 25%.
Right. We'd
Isn't it about
say about
25%
2,500
use the
would be
drop
coming
box?
in. I anticipate about 2,500.
2,500,
Yeah.
okay. So that would be approximately 400 ballots a day getting dropped off, okay? We need to have that number. And people don't normally, Sean has said they drop off that last week. That's not when they use the drop box. They use it further towards when they're mailed out.
Well, then they'd have, well, I'm not going to debate that, but if you want to put forth another motion, I have not put forth a motion. I just gave an opinion on a date that I found that was acceptable to me. But if you want to modify your motion, give it a whirl.
Did we vote on my motion?
We don't have a motion on the floor at this point.
Okay.
Use that.
Okay.
Yep,
Then I will use that. I mean, if I'm going to support this, I need 2 people at the drive-through. I need it to start on the suggested date by Sean, which I think was the 25th of
I was the first.
the first.
Yeah.
No,
March 25th.
March 25th, the first day that they could be mailed
Oh, I see. Wait.
and coming back. Yeah.
Is this the same motion?
No, it's not the same motion.
Go ahead. That's what we had on the floor before.
That's what you proposed
last time.
I'm sorry?
That's what you proposed the last time,
Yes,
25th.
2 people and March 25th.
Yes,
what you
and then open the same hours as the
So it's the same motion.
poll on election day.
Okay, well, I'm not going to second it because we just voted it down.
That's what you proposed already, and it was voted on.
I think that there is some, what is different is that the,
They're talking like, could you get their order?
Yeah, order, please. We have a discussion ongoing here.
yes. Restate your motion.
I didn't make a motion.
Okay, you didn't make the motion, you just expressed your
He asked me,
opinion.
yeah, what my dates were.
Okay, your dates. I think that the date is important. I think we need 2 people. And again, it goes to what happens on the election day when you go into a polling precinct, and it should mimic that. It really should. If we want people to have faith in our elections, that they're fair and equal and secure, we need to do that. So I ask you to incorporate all of those things and make sure that we do this right.
So this is basically the same motion that you set forth, that I seconded for discussion. We voted on it, it was voted down, and now you're presenting it again for a second run?
I don't think I can present the exact same motion. I don't think
wouldn't-
that's
why-
allowed.
I mean, why would you? But, you know, but my question is, if you want to modify the date or something, modify it, try to get something that will pass, if that's your goal.
And I'm trying to help everyone get to the point where they realize that it's important to treat this like when you go to our precincts, because people are actually voting.
Okay. Sounds like we don't have a motion, so this is not going to happen.
Unless you would like to
Well-
propose an alternative.
You're not willing to compromise on either the date or the 2 people?
The date
Okay,
is
just say yes or no.
no.
Okay. All right. Well,
Those are my conditions to support this.
okay, and mine are, I'm not going to make a motion because of the cost and the fact that, 7 days out isn't acceptable to you, so.
May I present a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to,
You have a guy, he's got his hand up. If you just want to tell him that I don't know what we're not accepting.
just hold your comments.
After the vote or before the vote. I'd like to
Don't have a
ask the
motion on the
citizens
floor
to
yet.
be honored, please.
So, I'm trying to go back to the original date you said, April 15th, Monday, April 15th. I'd like to propose a motion that we follow through with Sean's recommendation as presented here, with the stipulation that it be staffed April 1st by a representative of the voter registration office as designated by Mr. Drasher at the cost outlined in his proposal. Do we have a second?
Is that April 1st?
April 15th.
But what was April 1st?
You said April 1st.
I'm sorry if I said that. I said that was the date that.
He recommended April 1st.
I said that way back when during this discussion, but April 15th was the date I heard you say that you were be able to live with.
But that's not,
That's why I made the motion, okay? So it's on the 15th is what I'm making a motion. So will you got a second or not? Hearing no second?
No, just let me think.
I would like it to be amended for the 25th of March.
One person.
With 2 people.
With 2 people?
Yeah.
You're back to what you lost.
Well-
She can offer an
Oh.
amendment, but I don't second that, do you?
You don't accept her amendment? I didn't get a second yet.
Right.
Are you, so you're yeah, never mind, we already went through that. You're steadfast on 2 people and the 25th, so we already voted on that one. All right, I'll second the motion that we go with the dates, everything else that Sean has put forth, but with the dates 15th, April 15th to the 23rd.
With 1 person.
You had your chance to
Designated
compromise it, but you...
I was compromising. I didn't say Republican and Democrat the last time. I said 2 people.
So just to clarify that it's 15th and all 1 person, again, that doesn't preclude having a second person.
Please turn all your microphones on.
It doesn't
I'm
preclude
sorry,
having a second person there, but the motion on the floor is...
Turn the mics up, we cannot hear you.
The motion on the floor is...
No, I didn't ask you to repeat what you said, just turn them up so we...
They're antiquated. They don't turn up.
The motion on the floor
Then
is...
stand up and talk louder, please.
The motion on the floor
Thank you.
is that we would establish this temporary structure as outlined by Director Drasher at the cost of $27.25 and staffing it with 1 person. Again, I would note that wouldn't preclude having a second person if you have a volunteer or somebody else to cover it, but it's it has to have 1 person there, obviously, and the start date would be Monday, April 15th. Are there any other comments or questions from the board?
When you said up to the amount that you said, the cost, is that the cost of the shed,
Yes,
not the people?
$27.25, yes.
They're close,
Yes.
okay. The cost of the shed. I would, I hear you say volunteers can come in, but they should also be paid. I think that anyone who helps to staff that, up to 2 people, should be paid. And, with the date of April 25th, allowing a second person to volunteer, and they also get paid.
Commissioner, if you would like to, I have a motion on the floor, and if you would like to offer an amendment, you may,
Okay.
but I would also suggest you could, at some point in time, if you feel we have the capacity to have official people, you can raise that another time for us to add additional staffing at an additional cost.
Well, again, I will add a motion, an amendment to move that back to the 25th and allow a second person to be put there, and they would get the stipend, but it wouldn't be mandatory. But if you have a second person coming forward, that person can work there as well.
Are you willing to amend?
No, I'm not interested in accepting that. So, any other questions or comments?
Comment, quick fiscal vote question. What is the cost of the 3 dates? Thank you.
I'm sorry, the cost of...
Staffing, March 25th, April 1st, April 15th. What's the relative cost?
$120 a day.
So 600, 1,200, 1,800.
Thank you.
Sure. That's assuming that we're not using courthouse staff for some of those days, or commissioners, or any of my staff. It would be just purely if we went strictly on community support.
So, any other last chance?
Please move it back to the 25th. That would be my last ditch effort.
We have a motion on the floor for the 15th at the cost outlined. I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So we have a plan in place, and Sean, get to work. So we'll
Gives me more time to get the shit out.
entertain any additional public comment this time.
My name is Brenda Hunter. I'm very North Lebanon Township. I'm a lifelong member of the town of Lebanon. My concern is communicate. You are moving from a walk-up drop box to a drive-up drop box. And
Excuse